This is a full story. Kitten wishes you all a happy and enjoyable story. On our 5th wedding anniversary, I prepared a candlelit dinner for my wife and got her the gift she had always wanted. I thought she would be pleasantly surprised, but that evening, all I got was a message that she was going on a business trip. The next morning, I saw her alternate blog post. Finally lucky enough to go trekking in Nepal with Mr. Tony, whom I've liked since I was 19. Oh, by the way, my name is Rockey. When Haley returned from her business trip, I was just getting ready to go fishing. I used to love fishing. It gave me a unique sense of accomplishment, but Haley didn't like it, as I would unknowingly bring back that fishy smell that made her frown. After we got married, I barely went fishing anymore, but now, I no longer want to make concessions. Haley gently hugged me from behind. Her voice carried a hint of coquettishness. Honey, work's been so busy, I completely forgot it was our 5-year anniversary the other day. I pressed my lips together and replied calmly, "It's alright, work is more important. So, what gift did you prepare for me? It's already on your dressing table. Go check it out yourself." Haley paused, looking at me in slight surprise. She thought I would be like before, playfully teasing her, then personally handing her the gift to make her happy. In truth, I wasn't as calm as I appeared about her affair. On our anniversary, I went to the store early and bought the LV bag Haley had always wanted, carefully hiding it in the shoe cabinet. This way, she'd see it as soon as she came in to change shoes. After rushing home, I began cooking, preparing her favorite steak, and even lighting candles. Everything was ready. Waves of anticipation hit me as I kept imagining her surprised expression and reaction. But she hurried back, didn't even change her shoes, didn't glance at me, and went straight to the bedroom. When she came out, she was carrying a suitcase, leaving only this, "Honey, there's an urgent matter at work. I have to go on a business trip." I stood at the door, watching her walk away. I handled dinner alone, feeling a bit disappointed, but understanding her commitment to her work. Alright, I thought to myself, I'll just give her the gift when she gets back. But the next day, my phone automatically received a blog notification, reading, "Finally lucky enough to go trekking in Nepal with Mr. Tony, whom I've liked since I was 19. I usually don't follow blogs. It's always Haley who set it up on my phone. Since she liked it, I let her be. I never interfered. But this time, I had an inexplicable urge to click in. In an instant, the image pierced my heart. In the photo, Haley and an unfamiliar man were kissing beneath snowy mountains. I felt as if my entire world was collapsing. My heart was like being struck by a heavy hammer, and I couldn't believe it was real. I was restless, consumed by a mix of confusion, anger, and sorrow that filled my mind, leaving me unable to think. I kept calling Haley, wanting to question her. Wasn't she on a business trip? Who was this man? What was their relationship? Yet, her phone repeatedly responded with, "Out of service area." I kept scrolling through her alternate blog. I finally learned the man's identity, Tony, Haley's first love. Her blog recorded every bit of their connection, from college up to now. The pin post read, "Perhaps the crush of my youth was long forgotten, but when you reappeared, I felt like I was 19 again." The timing was exactly 3 months ago. I examined that photo repeatedly, feeling a strange sense of familiarity. Where had I seen this man before? Noticing me colder than ever towards her, Haley started trying to chat. "Honey, are you going fishing? Could you not go? I'm so exhausted from this business trip. You wouldn't believe the unreasonable demands from the clients. I'm really hungry. Could you make me something to eat?" Listening to her casual nonsense, I felt a surge of frustration. "No, order takeout yourself," I responded, nearly indifferent. Haley seemed unable to believe I would refuse her. I'd always fulfilled her requests since we married. I broke away from her hug and left without looking back. As soon as I left, my phone rang. It was my boss. "Rockey, knowing you, I have to confirm again. Have you really decided to transfer to France? With your abilities, you do more than well there, but you've refused me multiple times for your wife's sake. Are you really sure now?" I replied firmly, "Boss, I've made up my mind and I won't change it." The company had been expanding into the French market for 6 months and was looking for the right people to send, scheduled for a month from now. They'd always valued my abilities and wanted me to join them. I'd been tempted. Promotion and a raise are a man's dream. But considering Haley, I declined. Yet, the company didn't give up on me, asking me to reconsider until they could secure someone. If I missed this, the opportunity would go to someone else. Haley's parents divorced when she was young and started new families. Only her grandma took pity on her and kept her by by her side. Now, she also bears the responsibility of caring for her grandma and wouldn't easily move abroad with me. I remember the night I told Haley the news. She drank heavily, her eyes red, looking at me with tears. "Rocky, are you going to abandon me too? My parents didn't want me when I was little, and you know grandma needs me. If you go, we should get divorced." For so many years, every argument with Haley ended with my apologizing and making peace. She knew I loved her enough, confident I'd never leave her. And I indeed considered that if I left, Haley would be left alone, and I felt sorry for her. Who knew it would all end in betrayal? I won't give up my future for her anymore, nor will I keep a woman who has betrayed me. Hearing my firm answer, my boss relaxed entirely. "Tickets for the end of the month. The company will send everyone over together." After fishing, I went straight to shower as soon as I got home. Haley, wearing a seductive lace nightgown, playfully said, "Honey, let me check if you cleaned yourself well enough." Looking at her alluring face, my mind couldn't help but wander to whether she acted this way with that other man on her business trip. The thought felt like a bucket of cold water, instantly killing any desire I had. I shook my head. "No, it's late." I turned my back to her. Haley clearly noticed my disinterest. She forcefully turned me around, annoyed. "Honey, what's wrong with you? Are you still upset about last time? I told you, it was just a college reunion with old friends. I only met up with some good friends and accidentally drank too much. My friend was only trying to look after me because I felt unwell." Hearing her explanation, I finally remembered where I'd seen that man before. It was 3 months ago, the day Haley went to the class reunion. Haley, always meticulous, asked me to help pick out a dress. I put down my work and carefully helped her select outfits one by one, saying, "My wife is truly beautiful. Marrying you is the luckiest thing that happened to me." She laughed, unable to hide her smile. She cupped my face and asked, "Why are you so good to me?" I playfully tapped her nose and said, "Because you're my beloved wife, and I want to give you the best." I pitied Haley's difficult childhood, so I always tried to make her happy. Now, looking back, it feels absurdly ironic. I was helping my wife pick out her best dress to go meet her first love. Haley wore the red dress I had chosen and went to the reunion. By midnight, I was anxious because Haley hadn't returned yet. She didn't answer my calls. Just as I was wondering how to find her, my phone rang, showing a call from Haley. I quickly answered, "Haley, where are you? I'll come pick you up." A stranger's voice responded, "Are you Haley's husband? She drank too much. Could you come pick her up? I'm her friend. We're at..." I threw on a jacket and rushed out. Following the address, I arrived at a KTV and saw Haley in the arms of a stranger. I was furious and anxious. As a man, I knew exactly what could be going through another man's mind. I rushed forward, pulled him away, and carried Haley, preparing to leave. The man blocked me. "Who are you?" In the flashing lights, I couldn't make out his face clearly. "I'm Haley's husband. And you?" I asked, eyeing him warily. He merely smirked. "I'm Tony, just a good friend of Haley's." The way he emphasized "good friend" irritated me. But at the time, I only wanted to get Haley home as quickly as possible, not paying attention to those subtle details. At home, looking at Haley, who was drunk and helpless, I was both angry and helpless. I helped her clean up, prepared a trash bin and some hangover soup. Now, looking back, that must have been the beginning of their reunion, my first encounter with Tony. Does being unwell mean you need to be taken care of in someone's arms? I finally confronted her. Once trust is shattered, the past, present, and future all feel uncertain. Haley's voice rose. "Are you doubting me?" "Yes, I am." "Why him, specifically, and not someone else to take care of you?" My voice was full of anger, each word forced out through clenched teeth. Haley visibly paled, her gaze filled with fear and uncertainty. "You never acted this way before. Why are you suddenly?" Her voice trembled, clearly shaken by my outburst. She must have realized that I knew Tony's identity. Her tone softened. "I truly only see him as a friend now. Nothing happened between us. We're just history." She tried to explain, but my anger hadn't subsided. I didn't believe her anymore. She still didn't know that I had seen her private blog. Haley continued, chattering, "I already have you. Such a wonderful husband. Why would I want anyone else?" I couldn't help but laugh bitterly inside. "So, is it only when I catch you in bed with him that you'll admit it?" I didn't want to listen to her insincere excuses any longer. I got up and went to the guest room. Behind the door, I could faintly hear her crying. For the first time, I didn't comfort her after an argument. I was exhausted. Our Cold War began, a silent, smoke-free battle. By the 5th day at noon, Haley, surprisingly, cooked shocked for a change. She seemed to be trying to make amends this way. Off work, I made your favorite dishes. Come and eat, Haley invited me gently, with a trace of hope in her voice. I put down my briefcase, seeing the table filled with my favorite dishes: mapo tofu, stir-fried pork with green peppers, and even sauerkraut fish. I felt a mix of emotions. Since marrying Haley, I'd rarely asked her to cook. In my view, marriage wasn't meant to bind her freedom. I married her, not to have her cook for me, but so she could live as she pleased. Rocky, I apologize. I overstepped last time. See, I even cooked for you. Won't you forgive me? Haley clung to my arm, acting coy. If it were before, I'd have joyfully forgiven her. I cherished her rare moments of affection. I believed a man should be magnanimous, forgiving his partner. But now, those things that once made me feel precious and blessed suddenly didn't feel so precious anymore. During our days of silence, I repeatedly scrolled through her private blog in a masochistic loop, reading every word, every comment, and enlarging every photo to scrutinize them. In one post, she wrote, "Tony has stomach problems and doesn't eat well, so thin it makes me worry. Guess I'll have to be the good-hearted one to cook for him. Under my care, he finally eats 3 regular meals a day. His stomach aches have lessened, all thanks to me." These words of concern pierced my heart like thorns. Any friends know what to do about sudden stomach pain? I felt like a thief, spying on their happy life from behind a screen. Her love for me felt like being tossed a piece of candy from a bag overflowing with sweets, cheap and insignificant. My heart ached. I could barely breathe. Haley pulled me to a chair, continuously placing food on my plate, hoping for some response from me. I didn't say whether I forgave her or not. It's rare to eat food you cooked. It's good. Of course it is. Back in college, I used to. Haley trailed off, realizing something mid-sentence. Feigning ignorance, I asked. Used to what? Oh, nothing. Haley quickly changed the subject. I lost my appetite and turned to head back to work. My heart was filled with confusion and pain. I didn't respond to the barrage of texts she sent that afternoon. After work, I saw Haley waiting by my company building in her car. She stared vacantly at the people coming and going, her eyes red and swollen from crying. The first thing she said upon seeing me was, "Rocky, are you leaving me?" Her voice was tinged with fear and insecurity. "Why?" she continued, trying to get a reassuring answer from me. "Don't you know?" My voice was filled with deep sorrow and confusion. Haley's words were cut off by a phone call. Looking slightly flustered, she noticed I wasn't looking at her, so she answered it. But I still caught a glimpse of the caller ID. Tony. Anger reignited within me. My ears naturally focused on their conversation. What? Haley's tone was urgent and worried. I caught fragments like, "So much pain. Sick? Can you come?" Haley glanced at me with a hint of guilt. "Honey, my friend has a bit of an emergency. I need to go take care of it." She tried to dismiss me with this lame excuse. "You can just take a taxi home." In that moment, my decision solidified. I watched her step on the gas and speed away. I coldly laughed to myself. Our marriage means less than that guy to you? Since you're going, I'll go catch you in the act myself. I want to see firsthand how you handle your friend's emergency. Fueled by suspicion and anger, I had installed a tracker in the car a few days earlier. I followed it to an old, run-down apartment complex. Pretending to be Tony's friend, I asked around for his address. After some effort, I finally found the exact location. I knocked on the peeling iron door. Haley's voice came from inside. "Who is it?" The door wasn't soundproof. I recognized her voice immediately. I didn't answer and kept knocking. Coming. The door opened, and there stood Haley in an apron, holding a spatula. Looking at this woman, who had rarely cooked for me in our 5 years together, now tying up her hair and holding a spatula to cook for some other man. Haley, seeing it was me, asked in panic, "Rocky, how did you find this place?" Anger completely took over my mind. I shoved past her and stormed inside. The face of the man I'd seen countless times in photos finally appeared before me. He was shirtless, with wet hair dripping. He must have just taken a shower. We're just friends. He has a stomach problem. It flared up, and he just needed my help," Haley stammered, unable to finish her sentence. The emotions I'd suppressed these past days erupted. "You left me standing on the street to cook for him? Am I your husband, or is he? Even our potential divorce means less to you than his stomachache." Tony's first words to me were, "Rocky, I've heard so much about you." It was a blatant provocation. I couldn't hold back any longer, lunging at him, fist swinging, trying to seduce my wife, trying to make a fool out of me. Each punch landed on Tony's face with force. He fought back. I knew Haley way before you. Who do you think you are? If you hadn't jumped in first, you wouldn't even have her. Haley cried from the side. Stop fighting. Please stop. Rocky, Tony and I are what you think. Rocky, stop. Tony has a stomach condition. I was beyond furious. My punches came down harder. If I'd come a bit later, would you two be in bed already? Not like that? Then what am I seeing right now? Stomach pain, but enough energy to take a shower? You're kidding me. Tony looked at me defiantly. You saw it all, right? Since you're here, just leave us alone. Your bed is more comfortable than any hotel bed. I felt like I was going to be sick. Even Haley hadn't expected Tony to reveal everything so shamelessly. In the end, the neighbors called the police, and the three of us were taken away. Tony and I were both bruised and bloodied. As they cuffed me, my eyes were filled with disappointment. My resolve finally solidified. I threw my wedding ring in Haley's face and told her, "We're done. I don't want you anymore." After leaving the police station, seeing my enemy face to face only made my anger burn hotter. I glared at Tony, whose eye was bruised and mouth swollen. He smirked at me, eyes full of smug satisfaction. "You lost." I turned to Haley, who stood beside him, deeply concerned for him, and said, "Haley, this is your last chance. Come home with me and cut ties with him." I wanted to see who she'd choose now, with things at this point. Hesitant, she stood uncertainly, but ultimately chose to remain beside that man. My heart finally died. After everything was out in the open, Haley no longer even pretended to come home. I gradually packed up my belongings, preparing for my move to France at the end of the month. I arranged for an agent to sell the house quickly. The bed alone made me sick. Over the years, I had been more than good to her. I'd given her enough. Now, I was exhausted, and it was time to reclaim what was left of my love. The day before my departure, I visited Haley's grandmother in the nursing home. She was a gentle, kind-hearted old lady. We talked for a while, and I paid for an extra year of her care. I had done all I could for the 5 years of our marriage. On the plane to France, I received a message and photos from the moving company. "Mr. Rocky, Haley's belongings have been delivered to the designated location." The photos showed her things piled up in a cramped, shabby old corridor. I had also sent the divorce papers along with her stuff. I replied with a simple thank you. Then I blocked the anonymous number that kept sending me photos of Haley cooking and the two of them lying naked in bed. As the plane took off, I closed my eyes, determined to leave this failed marriage behind. In France, everything went smoothly. Work progressed steadily, and I even rented a spacious apartment and got a cute dog I'd always wanted. I was healing, slowly. 6 months later, I saw Haley waiting for me outside my office building. She had lost a lot of weight, with heavy bags under her eyes, looking gaunt and nothing like her formerly pristine self. I was used to her taking great pride in her appearance, so this sight felt unfamiliar. Seeing me, she rushed over and tried to grab my hand. "Rocky, Grandma passed away. I don't have any family left." She broke down, crouching on the ground in tears. For a brief moment, I felt sad. The gentle old lady had truly left. "Rocky, I was wrong. Please hear me out." I looked at her calmly. "It doesn't matter anymore. What's done is done. Regret won't change anything now. For 5 years, I'd been happy to pamper her, doing everything willingly, which she always accepted with pleasure. But now, I was tired. I'd set her free, and here she was, chasing me across the ocean, hoping to get me back. Not wanting rumors in the office the next day, I took her home with me. On the way, Haley reached for my hand several times, only for me to pull away each time. For a moment, it felt surreal. There was a time I was always the one reaching out for her hand. "Haley, why are you here? I already sent you the divorce papers. Didn't you see them? Or do you need a new copy to sign?" Sobbing, she pleaded, "Rocky, just let me explain. I really just want to make him one meal." My silence made my stance clear. Tony was my college classmate. I admit I used to like him, but that was a long time ago. Perhaps realizing I wasn't convinced, Haley raised her voice. "He has stomach issues. That day he was in pain and just needed my help. We didn't do anything. Rocky, I was wrong, and I promise it'll never happen again. Can we try again, please?" I looked at her with nothing but sarcasm. "Just making him a meal? What kind of meal was it exactly? Can you explain it clearly?" Haley froze, her gaze darting around, unable to meet my eyes. I pulled out my phone and opened her secret blog, full of her hidden life. I showed her photos of them kissing during a trek in Nepal, and her diary entries of moments shared with Tony over the years. "Haley, did you think I was a fool? Do you know how excited I was for our 5th anniversary, just to see the surprise on your face? I left work early, bought that LV bag you kept talking about, even researched which style you'd like best. I made all your favorite dishes, only to find out it was all a sham. My words were cold, piercing her heart directly, and I couldn't believe how much love I'd wasted. When you lied to me about a business trip, you'd already made your choice. Haley went pale, her mouth opening slightly as she whispered, I honestly didn't think about it. Don't tell me you were too distracted to notice all I'd prepared. My voice was thick with mistrust and scorn. Guilt and regret filled her eyes as she began to tear up. No, Rocky, I love you. Tony was just a little excitement. After it wore off, my heart was still with you. Can you give me a chance to make things right? She looked at me with near desperation, pleading, a shadow of her former pride. Gone were her arrogance and dignity, but she'd crossed my line. A cold smirk crept onto my face. It's too late. I gave you a chance, but you didn't value it. Stop this. I don't want you anymore. My voice was firm and unyielding, with not a hint of hesitation. Haley looked as if she'd been struck by lightning, staring at me in disbelief, her gaze hollow and unfocused. How can you not want me? How can you just leave me? You used to love me so much, treating me so well. How can you just let go? Her voice shook, betraying the panic and confusion she felt deep down. I looked at her struggle with disbelief, yet inside, I understood clearly. She didn't love me that deeply. She just couldn't handle the sudden coldness after all my years of kindness. Coming here to patch things up showed me her life with Tony hadn't gone well. During those first 2 months, they were madly in love, doing all sorts of romantic things. But soon, Haley realized Tony's home was too far from her workplace. She had to commute back and forth, rushing to cook and do chores after work. Tony occasionally helped, but had sold all her luxury items for cash. When her grandmother passed, Tony refused to help and even took off with half a year's refunded nursing home fees. In that moment, Haley felt true regret. She wanted to come home, only to find it sold to someone else. In desperation, she tracked me down at my company, only to learn I'd moved to France. At last, she realized she hadn't just lost her grandmother. She had lost me, too. I spoke calmly and resolutely, let's part on good terms. Don't come disrupting my life anymore. You're free now. I gestured for her to leave. Rocky, I have nowhere else to go. Looking at Haley, as if she had more to say but couldn't, I felt a wave of annoyance. I impatiently frowned. What? You want to stay here with me? Under the light, Haley looked frail. Rocky, you didn't used to be like this. I ignored her, turning to go inside. Just 3 months, Haley hurriedly added. Fine, but it won't be free, rent. A light sparked in Haley's eyes. 3 months wasn't too long or too short. She was confident she could change my mind. Just as she'd assumed, in our past arguments, all she had to do was give me an opening, and I'd run back to comfort her eagerly. But I planned to make her lose hope completely. Haley wasn't discouraged at all. On the first day, she set our discarded wedding rings in the most visible spot, acting like a perfect housewife, making Chinese dishes every day, each meal different. In the mornings, she'd lay out my clothes for me, following me on dog walks, even bringing meals to my office when I worked late, taking my place to walk the dog. It all felt like it used to, only with the roles reversed. She thought all her efforts would win me back, but it was all an illusion, entirely in vain. We won a massive contract in the French market, a major milestone for the company and a highlight of my career. That night, the celebrations ran late. The company held a grand banquet, and everyone was immersed in joy and pride. Haley waited alone at home with a cold meal. A female co-worker offered to drop me home, just a simple gesture between friends. But in Haley's eyes, it was proof I'd started seeing someone new. Haley stormed out to confront me, her gaze falling on my coworker and me exchanging polite thanks, furiously accusing, "Where were you tonight? I couldn't reach you at the office. Were you on a date with another woman?" She threw a harsh glare at my coworker. Ignoring her accusations, I calmly apologized to my coworker and clarified the misunderstanding. Haley broke down, her face pained, voice cracking. "Rocky, you've changed. You were different before. This isn't you." At that moment, I thought she was being delusional. "Don't compare me to yourself. We're already divorced. You have no right to control me." I laid out the cold truth. "Do I need to report my whereabouts to you? I don't need to cling to excuses like you. I have nothing to hide." I was sarcastic, mocking her. Haley's energy drained, and she forced a hollow smile, her voice dry. "Rocky, I finally understand what it's like to hope and be let down, to wait alone. It's so painful." I felt nothing, coldly interrupting. "Have you said enough? I was just out for dinner. I never asked you to wait for me." With that, I went inside without looking back. That night, I still heard Haley quietly sobbing. I didn't comfort her. I felt numb to her tears. Her suffering was none of my concern. In France, I joined my first half marathon. I wanted to push my limits and signed up without hesitation, knowing it'd be more about the experience, but I felt a surge of determination. I wanted to reclaim that confident, ambitious version of myself. Standing at the starting line, I felt both nervous and eager, wondering how far I'd get. With the starting gun, I swung my arms wide, took large strides, every muscle taut, but my legs felt like they were flying. I'd done it. I even placed in the top 100, a result that surprised even me. Haley had followed on a bike the whole time. Seeing me cross the finish line, she jogged over with water, her eyes filled with surprise. Excitement laced her voice. "Rocky, you were amazing. I had no idea you'd compete in something like this." She handed me the water, eager for an embrace. Instinctively, I avoided her touch. A teammate came over, curious. "Rocky, who's she?" I answered without hesitation, "My ex-wife, who couldn't let go of an old flame." The teammate gave an awkward chuckle. I accepted water from a volunteer instead. Ignoring Haley, I joined my friends for the celebration. She hurried over, grasping my shirt, her voice shaking. "Rocky, don't be so heartless, please. I know I was wrong. From now on, wherever you go, I'll be there." I didn't want her regrets to spoil such a great day. Pulling my shirt free, I cut her off. "It doesn't matter. Ex-wife, we're over for good." 3 months flew by, and her visa time expired right on schedule. Haley made one last attempt to win me back. Expressionless, I looked at her standing by the bed, done up to look seductive. Seeing the carefully arranged bed only filled me with disgust. Tony's words, "Your bed's way more comfortable than any hotel," stabbed at my heart, a scar long healed but still visible. Haley's actions only served as constant reminders. "Get off my bed. I don't want to change the sheets. Don't make me lose respect for you. Letting you stay was to show you clearly we're beyond repair. Is there really no chance left?" I looked at the woman I once loved. "There's been none since you betrayed me. If I took you back, I couldn't forget it, nor could I treat you like before. Would that be acceptable to you?" I would. Haley nodded frantically, "But I wouldn't. I can't lie to myself. Please, leave." Tears streaming, Haley choked out, "I'm sorry. So sorry. It was all my fault." Haley left, and I watched her weary figure disappear little by little. I threw the ring lying by the bed out the window, putting a final end to this failed marriage. 2 months later, I heard news about Haley through mutual friends. "Rocky, Haley's in trouble. It's all over the news. Tony turned out to be a con artist, using his looks to swindle women's money. When Haley got wind of it back home, she lost it. She waited for over a month, and when she had the chance, she stabbed him. She's been arrested, and Tony's still in the ICU." The friend hesitated. "Rocky, shouldn't you check on her? After all," I smiled, "I'm pursuing my girlfriend now. She wouldn't like it if she found out. Tomorrow is a new day." The end. If you like Kitten's story, please follow and like it. Updated every morning at 9 a.m.